Hello everybody. Today I'm back with another video suggesting one new character, or specifically one new villain, for each series already in Disney Sorcerer's Arena. Now I've done 2 videos on Disney Heroes Battle Mode, and now this is my second one on Disney Sorcerer's Arena, specifically doing villains. Last time we did heroes. I'll probably have a link to that in the description if you haven't seen that video yet and want to see some of the heroes that I think will be coming next to each series in the game. But let's just go over some rules and some things I wanted to say about the video before we actually get into it. The game already does a lot of crazy picks for villains, like a character like the Horned King, and that's kind of the reason why I feel like some of these characters I picked have a little bit more of a chance of actually being in it, because of characters like the Horned King or like Hopper from A Bug's Life. But also, a lot of series only have one main villain, so for a series like A Bug's Life, it's hard to pick more than one villain. We already have Hopper. Who else am I going to pick? So that makes even stranger picks than you would already have for those series that already have villains, which a lot of them already do. So one series specifically only has one villain. Like, I looked it up, I went everywhere, and it's considered to only have a single villain, and it's already in the game. So I'm picking a sort of weird thing that I'll explain when we get to that. And some series only had 2 or 3 villains, so one of these side villains, or one that really doesn't show up all that much, had to be picked just because there weren't that many. I definitely couldn't do another one just because I'm already kind of drawing at straws with a lot of these, but some of these series I have a lot of villains that I want. So we'll get into some of that, but let's just start the video off here now. We're going in alphabetical order, same as last time, and first up is A Bug's Life. Again, we already have Hopper, and the only villains in the movie are the grasshoppers. So I chose one of the other main ones, and that is Thumper. Now, he is actually terrifying. Look at that picture of him. And if you aren't so scared with that picture, just look up Thumper in general. He has so many terrifying faces, and he's just creepy, and I'd love to see him be one of the scariest characters in the game. I doubt they'll add another A Bug's Life character, but if they did, Thumper would definitely be the one I'd pick, because he is much more interesting just because he's so traumatizing. That face, I could imagine kids being traumatized from that. Let's move on to the next series, Aladdin. Now, we already have Jafar, the main villain, and Iago is a spell, so I couldn't do Iago. But I've always kind of liked this design, and it's not really a new character, but I went with Genie Jafar. It's that red genie that shows up towards the end of the movie, and a lot of the villains come from like the TV show and the sequels to Aladdin, but I wanted to choose from the original, and I could have done like the beggar, or Gazim, I think his name is. So there are a few other characters I could have chose, but I just really like the design for Genie Jafar. I'd be interested with what skills they could add for him. Let's go to Alice in Wonderland. We have the Queen of Hearts already, arguably the only real villain in the movie, and we do have her cards, just the kind of soldiers of the movie. They're in the game already, just as normal enemies. So I decided to just go with the King of Hearts. He's really not of big importance in the movie, and he's maybe not even a villain. I don't know a lot about Alice in Wonderland, and I know he's not a very prominent character, but there really aren't a lot of villains you can choose from. Apparently Cheshire Cat is a villain, which was my choice for the heroes, so maybe I should have saved Cheshire Cat for this one, but either way, I went with the King of Hearts, I guess. Let's move to Beauty and the Beast. I think this one's pretty easy. We already have Gaston, and we need to get his sidekick in here, and that is Le Fou. Not entirely sure how his name is pronounced, but he's the only other real prominent villain in the movie. There really aren't a lot other than Gaston, and if they were to add another one, Le Fou is the real only other pick. I don't know what kind of skills they could have for him, but I'd be interested to see what they could do. So that's my pick for Beauty and the Beast. The next series we have is Big Hero 6. Now for this one, I was looking through like the TV show, because I actually have seen that and I like a lot of the villains in it. And I was about to pick Noodle Burger Boy, because he's like the most prominent villain in the series, really. He does the most, and it seems like the creators really like using him. So I was about to pick him, but then I saw this character who was actually in the movie, and I doubt they'll choose from the TV show, so I thought this one was a lot more likely, and that is Yama. And I did forget about him just because he's really not that important in the movie itself, but he does show up in the TV show as well, and he's the only other real prominent villain, so that's why I went with Yama. But moving to Brave, this is one of the ones where Mordu is really the only considered villain in the movie, and Pixar seems to do that a lot, where they only have one real villain, or no villains, really, and we'll see that coming up again. But I saw some articles saying that this character is a villain, and I don't remember that being the case, but I needed a villain, and Mordu was already in the game, so I chose the witch. She's really not a villain if you've seen the movie, and again, I didn't want to pick her, but there really aren't any other characters you can choose from, so that's why I went with the witch for that one. I know, bad pick, but we already have Mordu, so I don't see us getting another Brave character anyways. The next series is Chip and Dale. Now there are a lot of, or I guess it's specifically Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. There are a lot of villains, just side characters that are either one-off or show up a few times in the series, and I'm not entirely sure which one is the most prominent, but I just looked through and thought which one would be the most interesting, and I found Sewer Nose, the crocodile alligator. I'm not sure, but I liked his design, and I liked the idea of having him in the game. And I don't know, I was looking at the other ones, and they're all just kind of, there was this cat that I saw, and a few mice and whatever, but I wanted to go with Sewer Nose because he's a little bit more dynamic than the rest of the other ones. So that's my pick for that. The next one is Frozen, which really only has one villain. Luckily, he's not in the game yet, so it's a pretty easy pick for this one. I had to choose Hans. The second movie really doesn't have a villain, other than like Anna and Elsa's parents, pretty much. But I guess not her parents, but their ancestors. But Hans is the true villain of the original, and that's why I had to go with Hans. I don't see them adding any more Frozen characters, but if there were, I think Hans would definitely be the next choice for that. The next series is Gargoyles, and as I've talked extensively in these videos, I have been watching Gargoyles, and I do like the pack, I do like Xanatos, but I don't see them adding any human characters to the Gargoyles series, because the most interesting characters are the Gargoyles. Now we have Demona already, so I went with another villain gargoyle, and that is Thylaug, which, if you don't realize, that's Goliath's name backwards. And he is like an anti-Goliath. So if we weren't to get Goliath, I think that Thylaug would make an accurate sort of replacement for him, or Thylaug could even be like a costume for Goliath if we were to get him. But I like the idea of having Thylaug in the game. His design is pretty cool, and that was the main reason why I went with him. Plus, like I said, I don't think that the humans will ever show up in the Gargoyles series in these games. The next series we have is Hercules. Now, Hades is really the only main villain. The two like gargoyle-like characters that are his henchmen can't really be split up, and I didn't want to choose just one of them. So I have a very kind of strange pick for this one. It's kind of a one-off character that isn't in it all that much, and that is the Hydra. I haven't seen Hercules in so long, but I remember liking the idea of the Hydra, and the CGI wasn't all that great for it, but I think it'd be cool to see them add the Hydra. It'd be a huge character, but I just want to see what they can do with it, honestly. And there are a few smaller villains in the Hercules series, so I just picked one that I thought would be cool, and that is Hydra. Now the next series, Inside Out, is the one where Jangles the clown is the only considered villain in the movie. And I looked for a long time, and there were legitimately no one else that they considered to be villains. So this is a strange pick, but I chose the Brazilian helicopter pilot. He's kind of like a villain to the dad almost, because the mom is crushing on the Brazilian helicopter pilot, and he's a homewrecker almost. So I realize this will never be in the game, but like I said, I had no other choice here. Jangles is the only villain. I didn't want to have one series where I didn't pick a villain, so I just chose a character that sort of is a villain, but legitimately is not. I understand. So let's move away from that terrible pick and go to Lilo and Stitch. This one was pretty easy in my opinion. This character isn't actually in the original movie, but is prominent in the sequels and I think the TV show, and that is Leroy, the kind of anti-Stitch, another experiment. I really just want them to add more experiments into the game. And I know there is a main villain in the actual movie, but I like the idea of having Leroy a little bit better. Plus I added Angel last time, and that kind of completes the experiment trifecta there. So that's why I went with Leroy for that. The next series is Mickey Mouse. And I noticed they actually bring in DuckTales and Darkwing Duck into the Mickey Mouse category. So I could have picked like the Magica from DuckTales, or Steelbeak from the Darkwing Duck series, or even like Negaduck. But I just went with the Mickey Mouse villain, and this one is pretty classic. It is Mortimer Mouse, and a lot of you probably don't know Mortimer because he isn't really in any of the recent Mickey Mouse series. He's really an old character, and you're not going to know him unless you know the history of Mickey Mouse. But I like the idea of having Mortimer in here. They have the Big Bad Wolf, so it's not too far off to assume that we'd get Mortimer as well. And that would be really cool to see some more of those classic Mickey Mouse characters making it into the game. But let's just go to the next series with Moana. Now, whenever I get a chance to choose a villain for Moana, you know who it's going to be. I always go for Tamatoa. Your favorite Moana villain, my favorite Moana villain. And this could actually be plausible. I'm not even joking. I could actually see Tamatoa coming into this game. And that would be so incredible. And I would love to have Tamatoa in this game. We don't have any villains for Moana in the game at all. And Tamatoa is clearly the most popular from that series. And I love him so much, I want to see him in this game. Now, Monsters, Inc. has a similarly shaped villain that I chose for this one. Another crab-like, spider-like character that is Henry J. Waternoose. I went over this in my Disney Heroes Battle Mode video that I really like his character, just the design-wise. And we already have Randall, so the only other real villain in the movie is Waternoose. So that's why I kind of went with him. I definitely would have chose Randall if he wasn't already in, but we've got him already. So Henry is my favorite second pick for Monsters, Inc. The next one is Mulan. Another one that really doesn't have any villains in the original movie. There are a few in the sequel, but I didn't want to delve into that category at all. And this character is actually part of Shan Yu's moveset, but I couldn't think of anything else. So I chose Hayabusa, his hawk. And like I said, he's part of the moveset for Shan Yu. But there really aren't any other villains. There are a bunch of generic Hun henchmen, or like the army, but no real actual villains other than Shan Yu. So that's why I chose Hayabusa. I know it will never happen, but I wanted a character for the series. Now, Onward is actually considered to have no villains in it at all. Like, there are interviews with the creator that he said there are no villains in this movie. So I just thought of some of the antagonists, quote unquote, from the movie, you know, that get in their way, or kind of, there is a chase scene with these characters, the fairies, and the specific main one is Dewdrop, which is who I chose. Again, they're kind of like allies, especially towards the end. They become friends with them. And there is that kind of dragon made out of the school, but I can't see that actually working in the game, or it doesn't really have a character either. It's just the kind of personified school antagonist of the final act. But I chose Dewdrop just because they are actually kind of characters in the movie. But again, a bad pick. Let's move on to Peter Pan. Now we have Captain Hook already, so I chose his number 2, which is Mr. Smee, which I did not realize was his name until just now. That is such a weird name. But yeah, he's the sidekick basically to Captain Hook, and I didn't feel like adding TikTok the crocodile, so I went with Mr. Smee for this one. Such a weird name. Let's move off of that and go to Pirates of the Caribbean. There are only a few big villains in the franchise, and we already have Davy Jones, so I decided to go with Captain Salazar. He's the main villain of the latest Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and design-wise, he's kind of cool. He gets like this trident, and I'd be interested to see some of the moves they could give for him. But yeah, there aren't a lot of different villains in the Pirates franchise, so that's why I went with Captain Salazar for that one. But next is Pocahontas. All we have is Pocahontas, so I just went to the main villain of the movie, and that is John Ratcliffe. I legitimately know nothing about Pocahontas. I haven't even seen the movie, but like I said, I looked up main villain. He's what came up, and I know we don't have any villains for Pocahontas, so that's why I chose John Ratcliffe. No more behind that. I kind of like his design though, and actually kind of would be interested to see what they could come up with him for this. Now, Robin Hood also has a main villain, which is Prince John. I'll just say it right away. That's who I picked. Now, I know he has a spell in the game, but it's like his castle, or like a part of his castle, and it has some money bags in it. It's not actually Prince John, so we could potentially still get Prince John. I know there are other like villain-like characters in the movie. We already have the Sheriff of Nottingham, so I couldn't choose him. And Prince John is like the main antagonist, so that's why I went with him for that one. I know there are probably some other picks, but Prince John is the most prominent, so I think he could be likely. But next was Sleeping Beauty. Again, we got the main villain. Maleficent really is the villain of the movie, but she does have a bird. So I chose Diablo, kind of in the same vein of how Shan Yu has Hayabusa as his hawk. The Maleficent has the crow or raven. I'm not sure which, but it is Diablo, and I can't see this ever coming. What kind of moveset are you going to give this little bird? I have no idea. But like I said, there are no other villains in the movie. It really is Maleficent, so I had to go with Diablo for this one. Next up is the Black Cauldron. I don't know anything about the Black Cauldron either, but I know that we have the Horn King, and apparently its sidekick kind of, or its henchman, is the Creeper. And like I said, I know nothing about this, but they said this is the most prominent next villain in the movie, so that's why I chose the Creeper. The design-wise is kind of interesting, but I would see it more as a one-off enemy in the game, and they might actually be in the game already. I actually have no idea, but the Creeper might already be in the game. Otherwise, though, I think that'd be the next main villain that they would choose for the Black Cauldron. Let's move to the next series, Emperor's New Groove. Again, no other villains in this. We already have Yzma, and this isn't even another character. I chose Yzma as a cat, but there aren't any other villains. I'm sorry, I'm not going to choose from the TV show because it's specifically Emperor's New Groove that we're looking at here. So that's why I went with Yzma as the cat, just because it's a different form of Yzma that we don't already have, and I legit don't know what else I would choose for that. So sorry if you don't like that pick, but there aren't any other villains. What am I supposed to do? Finally, Incredibles gives us an accurate amount of villains to choose from. I could have chose the main character from the second movie, Screenslaver, but instead I chose a character from both of them, the Underminer. I like the idea of the Underminer. He was always one of my favorite parts of the original movie, how it ended like that. And I'd be interested to see a moveset for him. I could see him like digging underneath the other characters, or like using the drill to go across like a line of characters or something. So I'd like to see an Underminer in this game, as well as Disney Heroes Battle Mode, as you know if you saw that video. But yeah, I do like the Underminer a lot, so that's why I went with him. Now for the Jungle Book, we have Shere Khan, the real true villain of the movie. And this is kind of a villain, although I don't see a lot of people consider him being a villain. But technically it is a villain. That is King Louie. I know that he could probably be considered an ally or a hero, but technically if you've seen the movie, you know he is a villain. Especially in the remake, the 2016 version, he is definitely a villain in that movie. But I just chose King Louie, just a simple pick for that one. The next series is Lion King. Now we have Scar, and the really only other villains in it are the hyenas. But as you know with this game, I should have prefaced this at the beginning, we don't do duo characters, we don't do trio characters. It has never been done in this game. Even Kristoff and Sven were split up. So I had to split up the trio, and I'm giving Shenzi her own spot. Now if Shenzi comes, I would have to say that they most likely would add Ed and Bonsai as well. But for this I had to choose Shenzi because I'm not choosing all three. Shenzi's kind of the prominent one, and I like the idea of having another female villain. We don't have a lot in the game already. And speaking of female villains, we're moving to Little Mermaid. And this one's one of the easiest picks by far, because all we have is Ariel, and it's time to get Ursula. It is a little crazy that we didn't get Ursula in the base game to level out the hero and villain roster, but I think it is super likely that eventually we will get Ursula. She's just one of the most prominent Disney villains of all time, and we have to get her eventually. The next series is Princess and the Frog. We already have Dr. Facilier, and again I went with his sidekick here, the really only other main villain in the movie, and that is Lawrence. I remember Lawrence from the movie. He wasn't that prominent, but if you see him, you'll probably remember him. I didn't even remember him before researching for this video. But yeah, Lawrence is really the only other villain in the movie, so that's why I went with Lawrence for the Princess and the Frog pick. The next series is Sword in the Stone, and again, I looked this one up. I don't know anything about Sword in the Stone, but Madame Mim is really the only villain, and the only character that was considered even a little bit of a villain is this guy named Sir Kay. Apparently he is a bad guy who eventually becomes good. Again, have not seen Sword of the Stone, know nothing about the franchise, or not even franchise, and it's just a single movie. But apparently Sir Kay is at one point a villain in the movie, or at least like an antagonist. So that's why I chose Sir Kay for that one. But there really are no other picks after Madame Mim, so that's why I had to go with that one. Now the Nightmare Before Christmas. You could argue that everyone is a villain in this, but according to the game, Jack and Sally are both considered heroes, and the villains are someone like Oogie Boogie. Now the other real antagonists in the movie are Lock, Shock, and Barrel. And again, I had to split them up, so I'm putting Lock here. But I think if they added Lock, they would definitely give Shock and Barrel their own characters respectively. And I couldn't see just Lock being added and never adding the other two, because they always come in as a trio. So that if they were to do more villains, I think they would add 3. I know that's kind of cheating, but you can't add Lock and not add Shock and Barrel. Come on. But that's my pick for that. The next series we have is Toy Story. We actually just got some more Toy Story 3 villains, and I would love to give someone like Stretch a place on this list. There are a lot more villains in Toy Story 3 that I really like, and we got Zurg, the main villain, in the second, I guess he is a villain in the second. He's not really in the original, but I chose the other main villain from the second movie, and that is Stinky Pete. We need more representation for the second movie, and we don't have, or in my last one I said that as well, and I added Bullseye, the horse, and I think that Stinky Pete would come next just because he's the only other main villain we don't have yet. Like, we got Lotso now, and even Big Baby and Chunk, who aren't necessarily main villains, but they go along with Lotso pretty well. So if they were to do more Toy Story villains, I think they would go to Stinky Pete next. I guess they could do, well, actually no, they can't, because if you know the game, they actually have, what is her name? The main doll character in in Toy Story 4. I can't think of it, but shoot, it's like a name twice. But anyway, she has that and like her dummy henchmen, and they're actually all enemies already in the game. So I couldn't choose any Toy Story 4 villains. That's why I went with Stinky Pete. Let's go to Tron Legacy. Again, I was told before that this is the main villain of the series, so I just went along with it, and that is Sark. Now I believe he's from the original and not actually in Tron Legacy. I have no idea. I've seen Tron Legacy, it was a long time ago. But Sark is apparently the main villain in Tron, so that's why I went with him. All we have is Quora, so there's a lot to pick from that series. Going to WreckIt Ralph. This is one of my favorite villains, actually, and it's King Candy, but not just him, in the Cybug form. I just love the look of him so much, and if they were to do King Candy, I would love it if they added Cybug, or the Cybug version of him into it. I said the same thing for Disney Heroes Battle Mode, but I really just want to see him in the Cybug form only, not even just King Candy as his normal form. That's kind of boring in my opinion. I love the Cybug look, and I can't wait. I say can't wait as if it's going to happen, but I'd really like it if they did. And WreckIt Ralph only has one character, so I could definitely see them adding a bunch more characters to that series. Now the final series we have is Zootopia, and again we only have Judy in that, so the main villain, Bellwether, was the obvious pick for a villain. And I don't care for Bellwether all that much. If I were to choose another Zootopia character, I would definitely go for more heroes, but Bellwether is the main antagonist, so that's why she had to be added for the villain franchise. And I'm happy to say that we are done. These videos always take so long and so much out of me to record, but I'm really happy to do them. The Disney Heroes Battle Mode videos definitely do better than these Disney Sorcerers Arena ones, so I most likely will not be doing any more on this game. Although I might choose to do adding new series. You know, I added all these characters to existing series in the game, but I'd love to do a video saying which series I want to see in the game and which characters from that. But I'll definitely start with Disney Heroes Battle Mode if I do that. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this one, and I'll see you guys very soon. Goodbye.